here in the home of Dr. Don Paris, and I'm going to interview him today about radionics and the SE5. So thank you very much for having me here in your home, and I've loved watching the eagles sitting right there in that tree, actually two of them sitting together. It's really amazing.
It is an amazing place to be.
I know, yet you found this very special spot just using the dowsing technique of the radionic device.
That's correct. Many years ago, when we first started using the SE5, about 25 years ago now, we actually used a dowsing technique and using the rub plate to look for the ideal place to live and work and be together.
So you will explain to us how dowsing works and how we can use it in our daily life, right? As we go on, you will demonstrate it for us, and also you have a very new addition which makes dowsing a lot more easy, correct?
That's correct. We've invented a way to quantify this stick response. In the old days with dowsing, they would use like a willow rod and it would pull down over water, for example. When there was water there, the muscles actually respond. The stick doesn't go down by itself, but the muscles actually respond. It's like an antenna, and that creates what's called the dowsing response. And so we have the same type of effect with this rub plate. The difficult part was not everybody could feel it. Even though I could see it in people when they rub on the plate and they would get the stick, I could see it from the outside, but they couldn't always feel it. And so what we've done now is we found a way to quantify that, and you can actually see it on the graph. When you get at the stick, we can watch that on the graph.
So I can work with a graph as well as a stick feeling, so it's a visual, physical feedback system.
Correct. It's physical and it's also visual.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that because that is the upcoming SE5 2000, correct?
I've got a short film on that, and I'll just show a short film on how that works.
That's just rubbing, and there's a stick. Wow, that's really a good spike. And that's it. That's just really obvious, because I'm doing very normal stick. Oh, let me wait until it. There we go. Yeah, that's a very sensitive. That's a super sensitive meter. Let me just see if somebody would like that. Yeah, so even that. Even when it's sometimes people get what's like called a bumpy stick, and it's like one finger starts dragging.
Right.
And that's when they're just first learning that usually the ring finger, like that one, will catch first, still gives a good spike.
Right.
So that's really good.
And here's how it works in the software. I'm rubbing on the plate, dialing down, and then I got a stick at 95.9. You could see that very clearly on the detector. Let's try another one. I'm going to start dialing down, and there I got a stick. So the stick detector will visually show you exactly where the peak of resonance is. That one was right at 100 right when I started.
Well, that was very much easier than in the olden days. I would love to tell the viewers how it went in the past. Actually, there was Dr. Abrams who developed this system over 100 years ago. However, let's just go on and see what can be done. I would like to see some really demonstrable results, because as far as I know, you can use this to read information, but you can use it to send information. So there are two. You can get information from map dowsing or dowsing a sheet of paper, or in the computer, the readouts of any detail you wish to find out details about. And you can use the device to send information. And that is taking this technology into the quantum dimension.
Correct.
Sending information outside of the regular realm of time-space, because there are no vectors involved. We're not sending force, sound, light. We're working at a scalar level.
Correct.
So give us some examples, because that's the one thing that really matters to us viewers, to me, when you see something that really works. I know you did that seed experiment in Hawaii.
Correct. One of the things I did was I took some seeds and I balanced them before I planted them. And then we planted the seeds, 10 seeds I kept that I didn't balance, so we'd have a control. And then we planted them in the same box, row by row by row. They all got the same amount of sunlight, they got the same amount of water, and here's the results with the balanced seeds and the unbalanced seeds.
So what did you differently? My God, look at those. Those are huge. And the other ones are those you didn't balance, and the big ones you balanced. Now,
Right.
What does that mean, to balance?
Well, what we did was we sent the information of having the proper nutrition, for example. We didn't use any fertilizer. We just sent the information of, like fertilizer, like nitrogen and oxygen and everything that a plant needs to grow, carbon dioxide. We balanced all of those aspects out in terms of information, not with physicality, but with information.
So not even electromagnetic fields, not light, not sound.
Correct.
You went beyond that to the scalar field.
Right.
And that, of course, is what quantum computing is about. The entanglement of the photon particles, for example, shows that there can be action that is faster than the speed of light.
At a distance.
At a distance.
Correct.
It's what Einstein actually was worried about, and in his life didn't get to prove out. He actually wanted to prove that it didn't work, and yet his theoretical experiment was proven out in the Maryland experiment.
Correct.
To prove that we have action at a distance.
He called it a spooky action at a distance because it has this spooky aspect to it. How can we affect something miles, even hundreds of miles away, without any connection as we think of it, like radio waves or wires or any kind of electricity? It's a different type of a field, and this quantum field is in instant communication with all parts of itself at all time.
So you can send information from here and you can reach across the planet.
Correct.
So there was an institute in Germany that had 14 of these devices. That was in the olden days. So could you show me some of the results that, for example, that institute in Germany got? Because they were hired by the government, as far as I remember, to balance large tracts of acid-damaged trees, correct?
That's correct. They were having an acid damage problem all over Europe, even as far as Africa, and they contacted the Institute of Resonance Therapy to help correct that problem. So they did some studies. Here are some of the trees that they did before any balancing, and then they worked on them for over 3 years, 3-year period, and here's what they look like after 3 years. And here's another set of trees. They have, this was again, these were deciduous trees, and this was before any balancing, and then after 3 years, this is what they looked like.
And as far as I can recall in that study, there was a drought in the second year, correct?
That's correct. Here's a chart of the trees that were balanced, and then a control set of trees that were not balanced, and you can see over time that the trees got more leaves on them even during the drought, the ones that were balanced, whereas the ones that were not being balanced by the SE5 had a drought in the second year, and they lost many, many of their leaves. So they used a light meter underneath of the trees to see how much light was coming through. So less light meant more leaves.
Okay, so that was a very comparative study where you could really see what happens to, and this was a large stand of trees, like a forest, correct?
Correct. They did large tracts of forest in Europe and also as far as Africa.
Wow, that is super exciting. I mean, just think of the immensity of this kind of work. It is what the breakthrough in quantum thinking is getting us to realize, that the world is not as we've thought of it. As of course it never was. Every breakthrough in every century has brought us greater insights. Yeah. And Einstein was looking for a unified field theory, and this seems to almost be an answer to it. Not the theory itself, but it's building on the understanding and creating effect.
This is the actual technology that employs that unified field theory, but having it in the mathematics is a little bit difficult with today's physics. So in my book, I've gone through some, let's say, some alternative views of how the physics might apply.
So this book here?
Yeah, this is my book called Regaining Wholeness Through the Subtle Dimensions. And so I've put together a theory that makes a lot of sense. I've had many scientists around the world contact me and say, this is the leading edge of where physics is going with this informational theory. And that's actually how I got my honorary doctorate degree. University in Stockholm, Sweden, found my theory in my book, and they gave me an honorary Ph.D. For my work.
As it should be. That is awesome. Thank you. Now, I'm a layperson, and I'd love to see some real tangible results. Look, I take vitamins. Okay. Is there a way you can help me with finding out whether the vitamins I'm taking are actually effective and whether they're creating results that I'm hoping for?
Yeah, so very simply, we'll put your photograph in the SE5.
So you need a photograph, or from the old days, a hair sample.
Or a hair sample, yeah, any type of resonating sample from you. We use a resonating field. Okay. We have some built-in programs inside the SE5, so I'm going to go to a small program where we can check your vitality first. We want to check the vitality, overall vitality of your system. We're going to go to program number 7. We've got about 60 programs in here. And I'm going to check your overall vitality first. So I do this by rubbing on this rub plate.
Right.
And like we saw in the video before, with the computer software, then you can actually see the graph of it and when the stick happens. So I'm going to start from 100. And I'm going to go down until I get this stick response. See my fingers stick on the plate?
Yeah.
Right there? And I can't even move them anymore. So I stopped turning the dial on the percentage when that stick happens.
Yeah, I saw it go down, 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 and then the stick happened, and that was at 85%.
Correct, and that's quite good. That's good for
being almost 60 years old.
That's true. It has very good vitality, actually. Most people in the general public have in the 70s, so you're doing very well.
So I brought you some vitamins here, and I don't know which ones. Try this one. I'd really like to know what that result is. Okay. That's Chlorella. It's blue-green algae.
We'll see how that...
they tell everybody one should take it.
It's really green, and for most people it works very well, but for your vitality it brings it down to 61. So judging from that, I wouldn't take this particular product if I were you.
It was a trick question. I already know that. See, I do really well with a phytoplankton, which Chlorella belongs to the family, and spirulina as well, that my system, I'm blood type A, my hydrochloric acid in my stomach isn't that strong, so it doesn't break down the cell wall of this type of algae.
I see.
So, but when I take phytoplankton, which I love to take, it's a green product just like this. My body absorbs it.
I see.
When I take this, I actually start having problems in my, notice it in my lymph clogging up, and so that's why I brought that.
Okay.
Could I take a look here at my others? Yeah, calcium, magnesium, zinc.
Okay, let's try that. So we'll start again at 100.
Okay.
I'll start dialing down from 100, and it goes to 96%.
So compared to 85?
It brought it up. Actually brought up your general vitality reading. And of course we could then focus in on specific aspects to see what this might be good for.
So can we type in the informational field of my bone system and find out if it's productive for my bone system?
Okay, so let me go to a program called the musculoskeletal system, and then we can find the bones.
And I do know that you always pay attention to make everybody aware that we're not dealing with the body. As you can see, it only deals with the informational fields. Okay, so you're checking now whether the informational field of this vitamin or supplement affects the informational field of my bone structure.
Correct. We can actually tune into the informational field of any part of the body. And this information is it's a signature. It has like a signature.
Like the blueprint of a house.
For example, yeah, exactly. So that blueprint of your house is the architectural design of how they're going to build the house. It's not the house itself.
It's not the people, the hammerers, the everything, but it's the shape it's going to take when everybody works together.
And we call those intrinsic data fields.
Okay.
They're informational fields, and we have a way then with the SE5 to tap into that to see how they match together.
So we're not measuring at the house building level, we're not measuring the people who build the house, the construction people, we're measuring at the architect level.
Yeah, basically.
I love that one.
Product. Oh, let's check to see where your bones are at first before
Okay.
with the information from your bones.
Perfect.
And, they're very strong. It's 93% already. So that, from that information, one could gather that the bones are very strong. But with this, it goes right up to 100%. I can't even begin to turn the dial.
So this one really looks like it's doing a good job for me. I think I'll take that one.
Yeah, it is. I think that would be a really good one to take.
All right. Okay. So this can read information. Now, can we also put information into my supplements or into me at a distance?
Well,
Similar to the trees.
Yeah, one thing that we've all experimented with over the years in different forms is to be able to send the information from a particular vitamin, in this case, supplement, and see how it affects a person's system at a distance.
So is that similar to what you would do with the plants? You send information of phosphates to the plant 100 kilometers away or miles. Now you're sending maybe calcium, magnesium, zinc to me as an informational field.
Correct. So what I would do is place this on the input plate, which is a type of an antenna, and we switch from measure into balance, and now it's sending those informational fields to you at a distance. And you could be sitting next to me, or you could be on the other side of the planet, and you get them instantaneously.
All right. So what are some of the results that have been done? I know that, for example, in China, they've not taken these kinds of supplements, but they've taken Chinese herbs informationally and sent them to people. So tell us about that research I heard.
So basically, we took over 500 sacred herbal remedies that were ancient remedies, and we digitized them, or took the SE5 and we converted that into a compacted informational field and stored that in the computer. Okay. Then we took that information later and reversed that process, and we put those informational fields into water.
So instead of sending it to me, you sent it into water.
Right, exactly. So we programmed the water. So basically the water holds the memory of those original herbal remedies. Now they've done work on over 30,000 people.
In the last
3 years.
Well, the last 3 years. So what did they do with the water? How did they apply it?
Basically, they did it in different ways. One of the main was they put it in a spray bottle and they would spray it on themselves.
They wouldn't even take it.
They wouldn't take it. Because this is informational field, it needs to get into the auric field. It doesn't necessarily need to get into the body.
Okay.
So they would just spray it around their face, and the system would take that information in and respond as though it got the original herbal remedies. So they had from their results, between 80 and 85% rate of success with all types of different ailments.
Whoa. So we're really entering a new dimension, a new millennium, if not more.
Yeah, it could become the new medicine. Right now, the medical industry is very regulated into what can be done, and they work primarily on the physical body. My contention is that we're much more than a physical body. We are an energy body, minimally, and then we're actually having more and more dimensions to ourselves into an informational level and a spiritual level. And so what we're now doing is taking this informational field and putting it into a medium that can be absorbed instantly into the aura and into the energetic field of the person.
So shifting the blueprint then has its effect on how the building blocks are being put together to create a different physical structure.
Yeah, in essence, the body heals itself. The body knows how to heal itself. It just needs the instructions.
Proper instructions. Well, I think that speaks for itself. So these studies of the 30,000 people, they have real hardcore studies. As far as I remember you telling me, it was done with hospital backup and laboratory tests. So it wasn't just like I feel better kind of thing.
Exactly. These were actual studies. They've kept diligent records, and they're convinced now that the energetic sprays are working as well as the ancient herbal remedies, or better.
So I also know that in Mexico they've used the SE5 and used programmed water to grow wheat with and corn and...
Yes, here's one product called Anorexia, and it's basically programmed water, and they spray that on the fields. They take a small portion from this little bottle here, and then they add it to a large tank of water and spray that on the field, and the plants grow as though they're getting real fertilizer.
That is magical.
It's fantastic.
Oh my God. I mean, of course, now, does it require that the farmer understands quantum physics?
No, not whatsoever. They do need to know how to run the SE5, which takes a little bit of practice and training, but once they figure out how to do this, and I explain a lot of that in my book, step by step, how to go through different types of experiments with plants, animals, people, even business, different ways that you can use the SE5 and apply these quantum principles, but you don't have to understand quantum physics to be able to use the SE5.
You know, I can recommend reading this book, Regaining Wholeness Through the Subtle Dimensions. People are fascinated by this book, and I am so grateful you've written this book, because it makes it this type of technology that's a bit hard to grok because our common science doesn't currently have that perspective on reality. It puts it into scientifically and proven with graphs and details, aura pictures and research, and like you said, that one with the measuring the shades and all that of the leaves, into, and the history as to how radionics was developed. So how can people download this book?
Actually, they can get the book for free. They can, of course, order it on Amazon or through bookstores. But I actually have a free download PDF of the book if they go to my website, www.se-5.com.
It's www.s like in subtle, e like in energy, -5.com.
Correct. And sign up for my newsletter, then you'll get a link to download my book.
Awesome. Well, I highly recommend everybody does this. I feel so privileged to be in your life. Thank you so much that I can do this interview with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.